trials, you see, can be both good and bad, right? A trial may be surprising in your life. Like, a trial can be a good thing. You can have 2 job offers, and that's a trial. Stop and say, Lord, which of these do you want me to take? Where do you want me to go with my career? That's a good thing, right? 2 job offers is almost unheard of nowadays, right? So that is a trial. Because why? It's a chance to stop and ask direction. Trials aren't always bad things. Sometimes they're good things. And when we stop and ask directions, those around us see us doing that, and they will recognize, as we get wisdom from God, because maybe the one that pays more, or maybe the one that pays more and is closer to home, may not be the one that God wants for us. All of our earthly reasoning, they go against God's plan. And that's why we need to stop and ask direction. Because there's a bend in the road, and we can't see beyond that bend, but God can. God knows what's beyond that bend. And so we bring all of our reasoning and all of our logic and all of the advice of our friends to the table, yes, but ultimately we get down on our knees and say, God, what is it that you want? And I will obey that. So the first thing we need to do is stop and ask direction. But who you ask is every bit as much as asking. Every bit as much important as asking itself. Our passage says, and you can look at this in verse 5, if any of you is lacking wisdom, ask whom? Your neighbor? Who? The bartender? Who? Your counselor? Who? Your parents? Who? Your siblings? Right? Ask God. Now, it's not that these other people don't have good insight and that you shouldn't ask them for their insight. Absolutely. But ultimately, some advice is going to be better than others. And which of those people can tell the future? Which of those people created the world? Which of those people knows how your body works? Which of those people has the power to do anything, go anywhere, know everything, and communicate what needs to be communicated? None of those people have the final answer. So while it's good to seek wisdom from other people, ultimately God says, ask for my wisdom, because my wisdom is divine wisdom. It's not worldly wisdom. It's not limited wisdom. It is infinite wisdom. And of course, some of those people may be better than others, right? You know, some of those people may, a counselor might be a good person to ask. They know you pretty well. A bartender, on the other hand, maybe not quite such a good choice. There's a scene in Chevy Chase movie, the Vacation movie, right? You know which one I mean? The Griswold Family Vacation. I don't recommend the movie, okay? I'm not advocating the movie. But there's a scene in there where, he's driving across the country. He's trying to get from, I forget where he's going, somewhere in California, but he's driving across the country, and he's totally lost, and of course he doesn't want to ask directions, and all sorts of crazy things are happening. And he gets off the highway, and his wife says, we're lost, we need to go find our way back to the highway. And he's like, no, honey, I want the kids to see what St. Louis is like. And of course, we're in the bad part of town. Like, people are standing on the street corners, like the prostitutes are over here, the guys with their drugs are over here. And it's horrible. And she's like, no, honey, I'm really scared. I gotta get back on the highway. He's like, I want my kids to see what life is all about. Like, he's making all these excuses. Like, I want my kids to see what real life is about. And, they're driving real slow, and he's like this. He's like, look, kids, this is what life's all about. They hear a gunshot. He's like, roll up the windows. Like, the windows are going to protect them from, right? And he's like, okay, let's find the highway. And so they pull over, and they ask a guy who's standing there, like, hey, can you give us directions back to the highway? And he's like, $5. Right? He's like, I'm not going to pay you for directions. And his wife is like, here, give him the money. So he gives him the money, and the guy leans in the window. He's like, well, you see that down here? Go, no, I'll go over here. And as he's doing this, he's really kind of blocking the view as all of his buddies are coming around the car, taking off the hubcaps and everything. And he's like, okay, go down here, turn right, turn left. And then in the end, the guy totally it's total bogus directions. The guy, and in the end, he's like, no, do that, no, do that. And in the end, he really didn't tell him a thing, right? Who you ask is as important as asking, right? So who do you ask for wisdom. God. God is the only source for wisdom. But also, in this verse, it says, not only that we should ask, not only whom we should ask, but how we should ask. It says, when we ask, we have to be confident in God's willingness and ability to grant us wisdom. Look at verse 5. It says, if any of you is lacking in wisdom, ask God, who does what? Gives how? Generously and ungrudgingly, and it will be given to you. God will give it if you ask. He has it. He's got infinite amount. And giving it doesn't cost him a thing. As his children and as his representatives here on earth, he wants you to have wisdom. He wants you to have insight because you are his witnesses. He wants you to know those things and to act in accordance to his will because you reflect on him. Your decisions reflect on his goodness. So, you need to ask for God and do so confidently. Don't be afraid to do it because he will give it. But we also have to understand what is wisdom. Some people make a mistake and say, well, God will give me wisdom and so I'll know a lot of things, right? Wisdom is not knowledge. You know, I've been to enough schools and enough classes and met enough teachers and educators to know that there are really smart people out there who are dumb as rocks, right? Have no wisdom. Really smart people who are fools, right? They're fools in life, but they've got all the knowledge in the world. I've heard that knowledge has doubled every 5 years since 1955. Information available in our world. We've got the internet at our fingertips. We've got our phone, right, that we can immediately turn to and get more information than Benjamin Franklin was exposed to in his lifetime in a matter of seconds on any subject. Knowledge out the wazoo, right? Almost infinite, but not infinite. But a lot of knowledge. And yet wisdom has nothing to do with that. It also has nothing to do with IQ. You can be really smart, you can have knowledge, you can also be really smart, right? Book smart, but street dumb, right? You're going to be really high IQ, but still be a fool. And the other thing, there's two things that wisdom is not, and the third thing that wisdom is not is theoretical. Wisdom is practical. It's not abstract. It's not in theory. It's like, wisdom is where the rubber meets the road. Right? Wisdom is very practical. It has life application. It's not something that you just sit around and talk about in an abstract sense. It's how you live your life, the decisions that you make, and how they play out.